Do I have any regrets? Why are you even asking me that? Are you like my therapist or something? Get out of here. Hi, I'm Gruffus. Welcome to Puppet Tabletop, and today we're going to be taking a look at deep regrets. I mean, I guess if I regretted anything, it would be borrowing all that money from that octopus, but I don't even know if I regret that, because, I mean, I'm going to be fine, right? Right? Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be an alcoholic fisherman tortured by regret and drowning in self-pity? Me too. The latest in depressed fisherman simulation technology is here with deep regrets. Thanks to this revolutionary new technology, you can simulate spending 6 days at sea, catching horrific monstrosities, sitting alone with your regrets, and anguishing over your past behavior. In Deep Regrets, 1 to 5 players will each be captains of their very own fishing vessel. Each player will have a ship, 3 matching player dice, a lifeboat, a can of worms, and a player board representing their salty persona. At the beginning of every day, everyone will roll all of their dice and place them into the fresh section of their player board. These are going to be the dice that you're working with throughout the day. Then each player will decide if they want to spend their day at sea catching some good old abominations, or spend their day at port stocking up on gear and selling their nightmarish fish to the poor unsuspecting villagers. If you start your day at sea, your turns are going to be pretty simple. At sea, there are 3 different depths that you can fish at. The deeper you fish, the more difficult and gross the fish will be, but the more valuable they'll be. Everyone starts at depth 1, but you can spend 1 of your dice to move 1 depth deeper if you want. And on your turn, you can then take a fishing action. To fish, you pick 1 of the 3 shoals at the ship's depth, and then reveal the top card of that shoal. If your Can of Worms card is currently on its fool side, you can flip it to peek at the top card of the shoal and either place it back on top or at the bottom of the shoal before revealing a card. Then you decide if you want to spend any of your dice trying to catch that fish. If you decide to catch the fish, you spend a number of dice equal to or exceeding the fish's difficulty value. If so, then congratulations, you're the proud owner of a beautiful new fish. If you decide not to catch the fish, or if you can't catch the fish, you have to spend 1 of your dice, leaving the uncaught fish revealed, and then draw a dink card. Which in this case, by the way, dink does not mean dual income, no kids. It's just a catch-all term for an itty-bitty fishy. It'd be funny if it actually was dual income, no kids though. Anyways, these dink cards will contain small little fish and disturbing bits and bobs that you can use as bait to make catching a fish easier or purchasing items cheaper. Also, once per game while at sea, you can use your lifeboat card to immediately go to port. This allows you to make 1 of your turns way more efficient by getting to fish and in that same turn going to port to take port actions. Speaking of which, let's go over the actions you can take if you start your day at port. Whenever you elect to spend your day in port, you immediately refill your Can of Worms and refresh your dice. You can then take a few actions when your turn comes. You can sell any fish you have for their value in the upper left. You can visit a shop to buy rods and reels that you can equip to make your fishing actions more efficient. You can purchase single-use supply cards and dice. And you can also mount any of your fish. No, I'm not talking about riding a fish, even if you can see his scales and know he's clean. Get it? That's a Holy Diver reference. That's a hip reference, right? I'm still young. Well, this is probably a good time for me to stop and explain how you win the game. As I stated earlier, your fish have a value in the upper left. This value indicates how much your fish will sell for, and it also indicates how many points that a fish is worth at the end of the game if you haven't sold them already. You win the game by having the most points. Alright, it's that simple, so now back to mounting them fish. Now, as I was saying before I so rudely interrupted myself, one of the last actions that you can take while you're at port is mounting your fish. This sees you taking between 1 and 3 fish that you've caught, and displaying them in one of the multiplier spots above your player board. These fish will have their points multiplied at the end of the game. And that's really it. That's every single action that you can do in the game, and players just alternate taking actions depending on where their ship is, and we keep doing that until somebody passes. Once every player is passed, the round ends. So you now know the core mechanics and the basic gameplay loop. Start your day at sea and fish your dice away, or spend your day at port, selling them fishes, resupplying, and mounting them fishes. Sounds kinda basic so far, right? Well, here's where we get into the nitty-gritty. You see, all these fish you've been collecting have special abilities. Some trigger effects when they're revealed. Others trigger effects when they're caught. And some even have effects that trigger when you eat them. I normally live off a diet of unpainted meeples, painted if I'm feeling extra fancy. But I gotta say, that fish looks mighty tasty. These effects are what give the game a lot of its depth. They create instances of player interaction where maybe you might have to give a fish to another player, they might force you to take some risks, and they give you additional things to consider when you decide whether or not you want to catch a fish. They might also force you or another player to draw a regret card. That's right, the game's called Deep Regrets for a reason. These are fun, flavorful cards that describe a regret your fisherman is carrying with them, and each has a value between 0 and 3. Maybe you left port without whiskey. Maybe you left the love of your life for the sea. Or maybe you had a romantic encounter with a manatee? What the heck? Regardless, you're gonna have to live with yourself. There's also depth in the type of fish that you can catch. Fair fish and foul fish. Most foul fish will make you draw regrets, and the ratio of foul fish to fair fish increases drastically the deeper you fish. You do have to gain a regret every time you sell a foul fish, so it does create a little bit of a regret spiral once you start catching them. But there's no need to fear though. The more regret cards that you accumulate, the further into madness you'll be driven, which isn't as bad as it sounds. While normally in board games, being driven mad is kind of a staple of any kind of eldritch Cthulhu type thing, and it's usually a bad thing, in this case, it's not so much. As you grow more and more mad, the sell and point values of your fish begin to shift. Fair fish begin to decrease in value, but foul fish, on the other hand, increase in value. Also, the maximum number of dice you can have begins to increase as well. If you ever reach the maximum level of madness, you turn into a full-blown degenerate. You have no qualms about lying and stealing now, and as a result, everything you purchase now costs 1 less. So if going mad isn't that big of a deal, then what's the point of all these regret cards? Well, becoming the Ash Ketchum of regrets also comes with a risk. At the end of the game, the player who has the most total points of regret on their cards is forced to discard their highest value mounted card. Which, trust me, it happens to me every time I play this game. It's devastating on your final score. And that brings me to the final thing you need to know about regrets: how to get rid of them. Other than learning to forgive yourself and going to therapy, you primarily get rid of regrets by catching or eating fair fish, purchasing supply cards, and also by visiting port. Now what have we learned here today, folks? Well, I guess the cure to living with regret is eating good food, collecting material possessions, and traveling.
Consumerism.
Yeah, this is gonna be one of those games where we talk about the art right out of the gate. Literally, everybody that I've spoken to about this game has immediately mentioned the art. It's fantastic. The colors pop, and the cartoony but hyper-detailed characters and creatures absolutely nail the vibe this game is going for. And I mean, that makes perfect sense considering that the game designer is also the artist for the game. All of the wooden components in the game too are incredible quality, and they're just as pleasant to look at as the card art. The game is eye candy at its purest. Now, in terms of mechanics, I actually really enjoy how simple the gameplay loop in this game is. You're trying to catch as many fish as you can and decide when is the best time to go back to port in order to sell or resupply. Every single person I've played this with has understood the gameplay loop pretty much right out of the gate. It's a game that you'll be able to grasp and potentially win against experienced players even if it's your first time playing it. The game also does a really good job of obscuring who's in the lead at any given time. Depending on the game, this is one of those elements that could just as easily be a bad thing, but I think since there isn't any consistent player interaction in the game, this is one of those times where not knowing who is winning makes the game more enjoyable. It helps you stay focused on your own plans and having fun without needing to pay attention to everyone else's progress. I also really enjoy the way they implemented the regret system in the game, and the way that it plays off of the madness tracker. It requires you to make a lot of educated guesses as to how much risk you can reasonably take, and it gives you a couple different avenues to follow for strategy. Do you want to lean heavily into collecting regret you can cut that, right? Do you want to lean heavily into collecting regret cards and hope that you gain enough madness that all your foul fish offset the potential point loss? Do you try to stay as clean as possible and get rid of all of your regret, focusing on catching fair fish instead? Or do you live life on the edge, trying to do a little bit of both? You'll be shifting between these strategies multiple times throughout the game as your decisions and luck drive you towards one approach over the other. And it gives the game this kind of fluid flexibility that evolves as you continue to play. And last, but certainly not least, you know what time it is? It's box time! That's right, all you cardboard sickos out there. It's time to figure out what's in the box. What's in the box? What's in the box? That's still a hip movie reference, right? I'm nailing these, right? While the outside of the box has beautiful contrasting colors and is really eye-catching, the inside of the box is, well, it's alright. It's kind of plain considering how the rest of the game looks, but at the very least it has clearly designated spaces for the components, which is nice. Some of the component spaces fit a bit too tightly, such as the cards. They don't really have an easy way to get them out, which is a bit annoying because you kind of have to flip the box over and smack it to get the cards out. But it does keep all of the components very secure, so I won't dock it for that. And also, the inside of the box lid does have some very beautiful art on it. Plus, the box closes without issue, so that's a major plus. While I'm not overly enthusiastic about this particular box design, it's good enough and it serves its purpose. I give it a pass. So, what did I not like? Well, there's actually a few things that I want to point out. First and foremost, I've seen people online reviewing this game saying that they feel like it drags on far too long. The first time I played this, I came away being like, what are these people talking about? That was super quick and really simple. But then it happened. I played the game with more than 3 people. Oof. It was rough. The game is well balanced and very well paced for 2 to 3 players. But as soon as a 4th player is introduced, stress cracks start to show in the foundations of this game. For example, the rod and reel shops only have a small number of items available for purchase, and some of those items are very clearly better than others. Now, this isn't really a problem in a 2 or 3 player game. You'll be able to visit the shop multiple times in the game, and there's probably something good still left in there. In a 4-player game though, because there are so few items to shop for in the rods and reel shop, pretty much all of the good stuff gets depleted after the first time everybody's visited the port. And this usually happens in the first round or 2. What this basically means is that after that first time visiting the port, everybody is pretty much going to have the best gear that they could possibly get. And in terms of making yourself more efficient so that you're better at catching fish, well, this means that you've already reached maximum efficiency by the time you shop for the very first time. But you still have 2/3 of the game left to play without any chance to actually grow and improve. It makes all of the following rounds feel very samey and repetitive, because you're just doing the exact same thing for the last 4 to 5 rounds without any actual player growth. Your gear basically just stagnates. And unfortunately, this causes the same thing to happen to the gameplay. Everyone in that first 4-player game that I played was having a great time until the end of the 3rd round. When we started making our way into the 4th round, we all kinda noticed that nothing had changed. Everyone was just like, dang, we still need to have 2 more rounds of this? And we ended up ending the game 1 round early just because it felt like it was dragging on so much. The rulebook gives you the option to do a 5-round game instead of a 6-round game to make it shorter, but I gotta say, even ending the game at 5 rounds felt like an absolute slog. Also, the game has very circumstantial and limited player interaction to begin with, so when you add more players, that's just more downtime between everybody's turns. Usually turns are going by so quickly that you don't really notice the downtime or lack of player interaction, but at 4 players, everyone really started to feel that downtime. It just felt like 4 players was like too many for this system to handle. I don't know, the game says that it can take up to 5 players, but if I'm being honest, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I don't think it's a bad game by any means, quite the opposite. It's just not meant to be played at 4 or 5 players, so I feel like saying 1 to 5 players on the box is a little bit reckless. Another thing worth mentioning is that there's a lot of luck mechanics at play in this game. I've stated it before on this channel, but luck mechanics don't really bother me in a game. I know they're not for everybody though, so I figured I'd bring them up here because, well, there's a lot of them. You're revealing a lot of cards without knowing what they are, you're rolling dice that determine your fishing efficiency, and you're occasionally flipping coins to determine the result via a heads or tail method. Everyone that I played with didn't really seem to mind the luck mechanics, considering that the game is pretty light and that there's plenty of ways to mitigate that luck. But if these types of mechanics are a big deal to you, then just know they exist. Lastly, on a personal note, anybody that's seen my Kelp Shark vs. Octopus review knows that I have a massive fear of octopuses. They look unnatural, they got creepy little arms, and they... Oh god. Oh god, do you hear that music? See you still trash-talking octopuses, Gruffus. Oh god. Hey Vinny, you didn't let me finish. I was just about to say how intelligent and incredibly handsome octopuses are. Gruffus, Gruffus, Gruffus. You disappoint me. Look, I'm here for the next payment on that very generous loan that I gave you for this little show. I understand, Vinny, but is there any way that we could handle this off the air? You know, I mean, the camera's rolling right now. I mean, no disrespect at all, Vinny. None at all. But whenever you show up, it's kind of confusing for the audience, especially if they haven't seen, the progression of, what's going on with me and you. I don't want my show to be more chaotic than it already is, Your show? Whose money bought this studio here? Whose money bought this game? Oh yeah, that's right, it was me. Until you pay me back, as far as I'm concerned, this show and everything in it all belongs to me. That includes you, Gruffus. Except Mortimer. He's a good guy. I'm fine with Mortimer. Now give me my payment. Good. Now, as a penalty for you continuing to besmirch the good name of octopus kind, all your future payments are gonna be doubled. Capiche? What? I mean, come on, Vinny, please, you gotta be reasonable. I could barely afford that first payment. How am I supposed to make double that? That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. Oh God, I'm so screwed. What am I gonna do? Oh God. Now, for the solo mode review, please welcome our resident solo reviewer, Mortimer.
Was that Vinny that just left? I love that guy. He's always so nice to me.
Cool. I'm so happy for you. How's the solo mode?
Well, the solo mode in Deep Regrets is a bit odd, in that it has very little in common with the core game. Instead of selling, mounting, or eating fish, you're just going to be catching and cataloging them. That's because in the solo mode, you're not playing as a commercial fisherman. Instead, you're a researcher conducting an ocean survey. Your job is to catch and bring back for research one of each type of fish. Unlike the base game, there's no selling fish or going back to port. Instead, you spend 100% of your time at sea. You have a handy-dandy little notepad that serves as a sort of eldritch fish checklist, on which you'll be taking notes of each of the fish that you catch. And at the end of the final round for fishing, you total up your regrets, and then throw that many points worth of caught fish back into the sea. You put a check mark next to each remaining fish, and then total up your points. The total points you have at the end of the game serves as the amount of money that you have to buy equipment before the next game. In this way, the solo game is actually kind of like a legacy game. And your goal is to eventually have caught and kept one of each fish. Ultimately, the solo mode does lack much of the depth that the original game offers, but replaces it with a greater sense of progression and a more relaxing vibe. Is the solo mode super engaging? Not really. Is it fun? Yeah, I think so. It's really satisfying to try and catch 'em all, and the solo mode feels much more like a cozy game in my opinion. However, if you are hoping to be able to get the same experience as the standard mode but in a solo version, you're going to be disappointed here. Overall, I'd say they did a good job with providing a unique, cozy solo experience here, even if it is a little bit shallow.
All right, let's wrap this up. I need to go get a beer or something. I don't know what I'm gonna do about this Vinny situation.
Maybe you should clean up the cards. They're kind of messed up.
Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. I got it covered, dude. So that's Deep Regrets. It has some serious issues with player count, but I think as long as you're playing with 2 or 3 players, you're gonna have a pretty good time. It's got a great aesthetic, witty dark humor, and a solid core gameplay loop that's really actually pretty fun as long as everybody's taking their turns at a solid pace. Plus, as Mortimer stated, the solo mode provides a simple and cozy way to engage with the content. I think overall, I did enjoy Deep Regrets quite a bit, and I'll definitely keep it in my collection for days when I want to play a game with just a small group of people. But never at 4 or 5 players again. Never again. Well, that's gonna do it for this one. As always, thanks for watching, and remember to shop at your local board game store if you can. Okay, are we done? I need a beer. I need a beer or something. I think I'm definitely regretting borrowing that money from the octopus now.